Welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. I'm actually travelling back to catch the ferry home after fishing with Paul Harris on the Beara Peninsula. We've been shore fishing, had a great time. But on the way back, Cluny Lakes are looming in the mountains. Fantastic scenery. Look, so easy to get right by the roadside. You stop by the pub there, out you come, get in a boat and look at the scenery behind me. Fantastic trout fishing out there. But wait for it, guys, don't get too excited. Small wild brown trout. Not that easy to catch and not that big, but fantastic challenge for you. Paul is good at this. It's called Loch-style fishing, and he's going to give us some tips. So it's going to be tips on Loch-style fishing on whatever we can do in the next couple of hours before I rush to the ferry. It's a short and sweet one. Fingers crossed we might even get to show you one of these Irish brown trout. Standard fly gear I'm going to be using, which is Paul's outfit here. It's going to be a team of flies. He's going to run through those on us when we're out there. Well, let's get fishing. Let's see if we can catch some of these allegedly beautiful Irish trout.
It's always worth it. We've got oars on the boat sort of thing, but unless you really enjoy rowing and you want to get your blue or something, then it's best to have an engine. And this has got a nice little engine on the back, 6 horsepower. More than big enough for the lake that we're fishing today, and just to tootle around. And you're not racing about, you're only just moving from place to place to start your drifts. Right, we'll just put the boat now onto the first drift, and it's a very simple way of fishing. The boat is obviously drifting with the wind. We're casting in front of the boat, and you're stripping in fast enough to keep some movement to the flies, because obviously the boat is drifting towards the flies. So you just sort of you're just stripping just at the speed to put some movement into those flies. And then in the last sort of 10 yards, last sort of 10 feet or so I should say, you just lift the rod up, and your top fly, which is a little bit bushy, the top fly, that just sort of comes to the surface, and we make a little wake. Just a little wake with the water, and that's sometimes enough to make a trout look up and go, ooh, what's that? And he'll come. He might not take that fly, but he might take one of the other 2 flies underneath, because we're fishing the team of 3 traditional wet flies. The size of that fly, really, the top fly, the bushy fly, is dependent on the wave. Today we've got very tiny little wave, so I've just got a little bibio on actually, and it's just slightly hackled. It's just enough just to make a little wake, but not look like a battleship going through the water sort of thing. This style of fishing, it grew up in Ireland, in Scotland, on the big lochs. I started my fishing off on the English reservoirs, and some great fishermen of the day, Bob Church and Dick Shrive and people like that, who really pioneered the trout fishing on the reservoirs. And we came to Ireland and sort of tried bringing some of our reservoir techniques to the Irish waters and our lure fishing and all that sort of thing, thinking we were invincible. And we soon found out that this is the style of fishing that works on Irish waters. This is the way to catch the trout. You want to drift where it's shallow. You don't drift over deep water. So you look for these little islands around here, these Clooney lakes. They've got these beautiful little islands everywhere. So obviously it's shallow near the islands. So you drift near the islands where you're likely to move some of the fish, where they can see your fly moving. The basic technique, the basic tackle you use for this, really any fly rod would work. You don't have to be anything special or any special technique. This is about a sort of 10-foot rod. It's a number 8 weighted rod. The fly line on it is a weight forward number 8. Some people would say, oh no, you don't want to use weight forward, you really want to use double taper. It's personal choice. It doesn't really matter as long as you're happy with what you're using. See, one false cast, bump, you're fishing. So it's very quick to do. The team, as say, has 3 wet flies. Your leader, from the fly line, I normally have about 4 foot of mono to which I attach my leader. The top dropper then would be just sort of about sort of another 2 foot down. So about from 6 foot from the end of the fly line to the first fly. And then a gap of about 3 foot to your middle dropper and a gap again of 3 foot down to your point fly. And that's generally sort of does the job. Strength of line, it can depend on where you're fishing. On a water like this, we know the trout aren't that big, so you could sort of fish 4, 5, 6 pound line. But be warned, these little lakes, although they only contain smallish brownies, also contain sea trout and salmon. So that little rise that you think is a sort of 8-inch, 9-inch, 10-inch brownie can suddenly be an 8, 9, 10 pound salmon. So you have to treat every rise with a little bit of respect. I say today we're on Clooney Lakes. These lakes are free to fish. There's no day tickets or licenses or permits or anything like that you need. A lovely little boat we're on, which you can rent from the lake house, which is the pub right next to the lakes. Couldn't be a better situation in life. Rent the boat from a pub and then go back into the pub afterwards. So that's always a good way of doing things. There's lots of other lakes around the Beara, up in the mountains, if you feel like a little bit of trekking. Beautiful little gems up in those mountains. I heard a man describe them as close to the Garden of Eden as you'll ever get without sort of dying. Beautiful little places, and they're just up there. They're in the mountains. As I said, they're free to fish, just waiting for you to discover them. One of the things you've always got to be on your toes for here is these fish will take right up in front of the boat, because just when we're doing that little sort of bit at the end, as I'm doing now, I'm just pulling the bob fly through, and it's just creating a little wake in the water, and the trout see that little movement and go, what's that? And then they see the other 2 flies, and actually while we've been filming I've missed 2 fish, because you really got to be quick with them at times. They always take when the rod's just at about the worst angle. When the rod's back here somewhere, all of a sudden they'll take. And so you've got to give it a bit of concentration and keep your eye on these little devils there. They're only small, but they're very fiendishly cunning and clever. The size limit here on Clooney Lakes is 9 inches. Admittedly, most people put 99% of the fish back, sort of thing. But if you want to keep one, size limit's 9 inches. As Sean at the lake house there says, pan size, just about nice pan size. So a couple of nice little wild brown trout for breakfast. Beautiful, beautiful. Now this is what they call small but beautifully marked. Look at that. That took a teal, blue and silver, which really is a sea trout fly, but My hand is wet, so it's not going to come to any harm, the fish. But look at that, isn't that the most beautiful little fish? And that fish is after I have had at least 15 fish on, off, bumped the fly, took the fly, missed the fly. It's one of those days, but they're a little beauty. So we will just take the hook out, we'll slip it. It's beautiful, look at those markings. You couldn't paint those things, they're gorgeous, aren't they? Little wild brown trout, born and bred here in this lake. The thing is, you just leave the oar there. You don't worry about it. Just let it drift. Not the front oar, just the back oar is the only one you have there. And as you can see, you can just move it. You can just swing us round. We can push the boat round. We can just get ourselves right on the nice drift that we want to catch the wind and move in the right position. Right, with this style of fishing, Loch-style fishing, it's not long casting. You're not trying to bang a line out 30 yards or anything like that. About 10 yards of line is more than enough. Because don't forget, your boat's moving all the time. So the boat's moving, you're moving, so you're covering fresh water constantly. So you don't need any great big long casts. 10 yards. In fact, I've seen people just fishing 5 or 6 yards of fly line, especially when there's a big wave. If there's a big wave, you can get away with literally just 5 or 6 yards. See, one false cast in the water, so you're covering fresh ground all the time. So don't bother with great long casts. Not needed, not required. Right, the last fish we had, he took a little bit of bling, the teal and blue and silver. This fish, being a true Irish fish, took one of the great Irish flies, which is the bibio. There's the bibio. It's just a lovely bit of black and red and silver ribbon and a nice little hackle. That's on the top dropper, and that's sort of making a little wake. And he came up and he went for the wake. Well, the one thing about this wild trout fishing, wild brown trout fishing, Loch-style, it's a great way of fishing. It's an enjoyable way, it's great fun, it's very effective. We catch a lot of fish doing it. But there's one thing you must have that's vital. It will not work, this fishing will not work without it. Wind. You've got to have a breeze blowing. And what's happening to us today is the wind is coming and going, and now it's pretty much gone. We've lost the ripple. The boat's not even moving, so without the boat moving we can't really fish it. But we've had a bit of fun. We hope you've learned something from it as well. We've caught a few fish, and come over and try Loch-style fishing for wild brown trout. Trust me, you'll enjoy it.